Hey guys, how are you guys doing? I'm going to record this video just to give you some tips and tricks as you prepare for the exam. So, one of the hardest things about this chapter is that there is a multitude of problems. So, if I say, hey, it's this kind of problem, you usually know how to solve it, right? If you've been practicing. But one of the hardest part is determining, well, which type of problem is it? What path do I take to solving this problem? So in this video, I'm just going to give you some tips for recognizing the types of problems and then also how to solve them. So looking at this, we've got really 4 types of problems that I can ask on the exam. Above this line is no need for ICE tables, right? Those can just be solved by writing the K equation. Below this line, you will have a need for an ICE table. So I'm going to go through kind of each one of these and kind of explain how we would approach solving them, how you identify them. So for the first one, determine the equilibrium constant. Well, if I'm asking you for the equilibrium constant, I'm asking for K. You must have all the information to fill out the concentrations at equilibrium, right? So if I'm asking you, let me get my pen here. I'm asking you, not there. Right, so I'm asking you to determine K. We know that it's concentration of products over concentration of reactants, okay? If I'm saying determine the equilibrium constant, I'm going to give you the concentration of the products at equilibrium. I'm going to give you the concentration of the reactants at equilibrium. So for this one, kind of some tips and tricks. You're going to look for the words at equilibrium when you see those concentrations. And you will also see no mention of initial. Okay, so you will not see anything that says initially or at the start. It will be at equilibrium. Here's the concentrations. It's a plug and chug. Plug it into the K equation, chug through it. The other type of question I can ask you without an ICE table is determine the equilibrium concentrations of one unknown. So that might look something like this. So let's say we've got K, we've got concentration of products, and these are maybe 2 different products, concentration of reactants, and I say, hey, what is the equilibrium concentration of this guy? Okay. So things to look for. You'll be given the K value. So somewhere, if it's saying, what is the equilibrium concentration of this particular compound? Somewhere in that problem, the value for K will be given to you. You will also see at equilibrium, right? So what is this concentration at equilibrium? Here's the concentration of the other things at equilibrium. So again, for these, we're going to be looking for at equilibrium. We're going to be looking for no mention of initial. And we will be looking for the K equals something. That's going to be a given value in these types of problems. Okay. No mention of initial. All of them are at equilibrium. Find the K value, plug and chug through it. The last 2, so these are the 2 that are under the line. These are going to be the ones you need for an ICE table. So determine the equilibrium concentrations and K when we know initial. Okay, so how do I identify this one? So number 1, if there's any mention of initial, automatically you need an ICE table. Okay, so if it says initially there is, the first thing you should then write on your paper is ICE. Okay, so if there's initial concentrations, there will be an ICE table. For these types of problems, you are going to be asked to solve for K. So if there's mention of initial and then it says solve for K, you will have the ICE table filled with numbers, actual numbers. Okay, so this will be like the ones that we did in the lab, where we were able to fill the entire ICE table out with numbers and then plug those numbers into the K equation to solve for K. So if there's a mention of initial and it's asking you to solve for the equilibrium constant K, that will be an ICE table that is filled with numbers, no X's. And then lastly, we've got determine equilibrium concentrations when we know K and only initial. So what are we looking for here? So they're going to mention initial. Okay, so automatically we write I, C, E. Okay, as soon as you see the word initial or start with or whatever, put the ICE table down. Okay. And then in this one, K is going to be given. So if K is given in the problem, that's going to be your indication that this is going to be an ICE table with X's. Okay, so it's going to be an indication that we have to have an ICE table. We're going to fill that ICE table, unfortunately, with X's, and then we're going to use one of our ways to solve. Remember, you've got multiple paths to solving these problems. So if it is a perfect square, so squared value on top, squared value on bottom, you can use perfect square. You can always try X's small approximation, so getting rid of that X value that's being added or subtracted. You have to validate that one. And if those two fail you, then we have to go to the quadratic formula. That will work 100% of the time, but certainly is the most time consuming. So if there's a mention of initial, the K value is given, you're going to need to fill that ICE table of X's and solve it from there. I hope this gives you a little bit of clarity as you're working through these problems. Please, please, please reach out to me if you need any assistance. The best way to get good at these is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. I have supplied lots of opportunities for practice, so please make sure you're utilizing those, doing those, and setting yourself up for success. I'll see you guys soon.